Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're going to dive into the surprising structural truth behind cellulite and lower body tone. If you've ever felt totally frustrated because your lower body just isn't responding to standard fat loss advice, well, you are absolutely in the right place. Today, we're bringing the real science of structural anatomy and metabolism directly to you, breaking down exactly how to restore the tissues you probably didn't even realize were fast asleep. Okay, here is our roadmap for today. We'll start with 1, the truth about cellulite. Moving on to 2, curing gluteal amnesia. 3, insulin control for muscle. 4, the 4 exercise protocol. And finally, 5, measuring sustainable results. Section 1, the truth about cellulite, a paradigm shift. Let's shatter a major mainstream fitness myth right out of the gate. So we have to start by asking this fundamental question, because the answer is way more complex than what the fitness industry usually tells us. First off, we need to recognize that female bodies are physiologically predisposed to store adipose tissue or fat, preferentially in the hips, thighs, and glutes. And guys, this isn't a flaw. It's literally an evolutionary adaptation. It's intimately tied to reproductive function and the intense demands of pregnancy. Interestingly enough, this specific fat is rich in omega-3 fatty acids like DHA, which are absolutely critical for fetal neurodevelopment. So the presence of fat there, completely natural. The characteristic dimpled appearance, however, well, that's a whole different story.
And here is the massive paradigm shift you need to internalize. Treating cellulite requires addressing structural deterioration, not just obsessing over weight loss. You see, losing weight without actually strengthening the underlying muscle often does absolutely nothing to change the structural deficit. The dimpling you see is actually the combined result of fat accumulation and the severe deterioration or atrophy of the muscles and the fascia lying right beneath it.
Let's define this crucial element, because it's a real game changer. Fascia is the dense connective tissue network that envelops all your muscles. Think of it functioning exactly like a tight structural garment, providing the literal shape and tone to your body's curves. Now, unlike passive tissue, fascia has contractile elements. It actively responds to mechanical loading. But when the muscle beneath it is constantly underused, this structural garment loses its density. It gets weak and saggy. And when that happens, the underlying fat simply pushes through this weakened fascial lattice in an irregular, dimpled pattern.
Section 2, curing your gluteal amnesia, the sitting epidemic. Now it's time to look at the main villain of our explainer today.
If you are a desk-bound professional, listen up, because you are very likely suffering from what scientists actually call gluteal amnesia. This means your largest metabolic driver, the gluteus maximus, is essentially turned off and actively deteriorating. The gluteus maximus is literally the largest single muscle in the human body. It is your primary metabolic anchor. But when you sit all day long, your glutes are stuck in this shortened, compressed position. They aren't contracting. They aren't getting any mechanical signals. The muscle fibers thin out, motor neuron connections aggressively weaken, and you literally lose the capacity to activate them voluntarily. Your brain just forgets how to use them.
I want you to try this functional sit-to-stand test later on. Seriously, try it. Can you get up from a chair without using your arms for momentum or support? If you struggle with this, it is a glaring, real-world indicator of gluteal and quadricep atrophy. Rising from a chair strictly requires concentric strength. If you can't do it smoothly and easily, your body's fascial garment is losing its vital support structure.
Section 3, insulin control for muscle, the metabolic prerequisite. Before we even touch on physical exercises, we absolutely must cross this hidden metabolic barrier. Here's the hard truth. You cannot rebuild muscle and fascia effectively if a diet high in sugars is creating constant chronic inflammation. High refined carbohydrates cause a chronically elevated insulin level in your blood. This insulin burden promotes systemic inflammation and directly impairs the anabolic signaling your body requires to actually synthesize muscle protein. Plus, it forces your body to preferentially store fat in those peripheral hip and thigh areas. So step 1, you have to reduce refined carbs. That directly leads to step 2, lowering that chronic insulin burden. Step 3, incorporate some structured fasting between your meals, which smoothly leads into step 4, vastly improving the overall hormonal environment for muscle synthesis. Guys, these dietary modifications are foundational prerequisites for structural change. They are not optional add-ons if you want real results. Section 4, the 4 exercise protocol engaging the kinetic chain. Now that we've set the metabolic stage, let's jump right into the actionable physical solution. What's critical to understand here is that doing isolated glute exercises just isn't going to cut it. You must engage the full kinetic chain across multiple planes of movement to truly restore that tissue. Your glutes are part of a continuous fascial chain running all the way from your foot up into your lumbar spine. So here's how we target the whole shebang, using just a resistance band placed right above the knees. First up, the banded clamshell. Lie on your side, hips stacked, knees bent, and slowly rotate that top knee upward. This intensely hits the outer gluteal complex. Second, the banded loop bridge. Lying flat on your back, drive forcefully through your heels and squeeze the glutes hard at the top. Third, the lateral band walk. Standing with a slight knee bend, take slow, deliberate lateral steps while maintaining constant band tension. And finally, number 4, the deep squat with lateral shift. Drop into a deep squat and very slowly shift your body weight left to right. This activates those deep hip rotators that standard gym routines completely miss. Now, the absolute secret sauce here is the mind-muscle connection. You must actively focus your attention on feeling the contraction to reestablish those lost neuromuscular patterns we talked about. Research in motor neuroscience actually proves this. Consciously visualizing the muscle working literally increases the electrical activation in that target tissue. Crazy, right? So, when you're doing these exercises, I want you to mentally direct the movement straight into your glutes. Feel it exactly at the peak of the effort. Quality of movement is vastly more important than speed or trying to add heavy weights, especially during these crucial early stages of waking the muscles back up. Section 5. Measuring sustainable results. Redefining progress. As you embark on this protocol, we really need to completely reset your expectations. Because muscle is significantly denser than fat by volume, your scale weight might actually remain totally stable at first, but I guarantee your clothing will fit noticeably differently. Remember, as you build that gluteal muscle back up, you are increasing the resting metabolic rate of your entire lower body. That larger active muscle mass will eventually oxidize the surrounding stored fat to use for energy. But first, the density of that brand new tissue is going to reshape that structural fascial garment we talked about earlier. Looking at this timeline, it's clear that true structural change takes patience. Those initial difficult workout sessions simply confirm you are effectively targeting the correct, highly atrophied tissue. During the first 4 weeks, exercises like the banded clamshell might feel incredibly, frustratingly hard, because those muscles have literally been asleep for years. Stick with it. Don't quit. As you move into weeks 4 to 8, you'll progress by increasing the resistance band tension and your repetitions. Your primary metric here is purely strength. The visible external changes to the fascia and the actual smoothing out of the cellulite, that takes months of consistent tension and tightly controlled insulin levels. The appropriate early measure of progress is strength, not body weight. I absolutely love this takeaway. It's a perfect reminder that increasing your strength is the single most reliable scientific indicator that your internal metabolic machinery is being properly rebuilt. If you are getting stronger in these specific movements, you are succeeding. Full stop. The structural tone and the fat oxidation will inevitably follow just as soon as that foundation is completely secure. So, I want to leave you with this final challenge to test your own structural integrity today, and I highly encourage you to start rebuilding your foundation using this protocol right away. Seriously, try the sit-to-stand test as soon as this explainer is over. Think about your insulin burden, grab a resistance band, and start waking up that kinetic chain. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I really hope this empowers you to take full control of your structural health.